All right. Finally, I'm on. It's amazing. I had to restart my computer. It didn't let me on before, but I'm on. I can see somebody here. I'm going to give it a minute. I'm sure somebody got confused and they came at this time and I wasn't here. Sorry about this. Occasionally this happens. I think I have to restart my computer more often. Maybe somebody wants to send me a message here. I think there is somebody here already. We're going to talk about haunches in. Let me see. Hi, Kathy. There you are. Seems like everything is working fine. Annika, let me see where do I get the messages here. See here. People, because it failed there in the beginning, but we'll give it just a minute or so. I think winter is coming in Iceland. Got some snow today, and not too bad though. It's not too cold. Hey, Nancy. East Coast Precision. That's you, Nancy, right? When people have different names, it's sometimes hard to know who it is, but I think I remember that right. Yep, that's you. I remembered it. All right. I'm gonna talk a little bit about Haunches Inn and what we were doing in these videos, me and Kirsty. And I encourage you to ask questions now if it's anything. I started messing up my words there in the beginning of the first video and talked about contra Haunches Inn. In Iceland, somehow we've adopted this word contra, something that comes from counter, I think. I'm not exactly where it comes from, to be honest. We talk about counter or sometimes contra. I don't know why. Shoulder in Icelandic, but there is an Icelandic word for it. It's called úthverfur. So we have shoulder in and then úthverfur, shoulder in. We have haunches in and then úthverfur, haunches in. It basically means like facing out or turning out, inside out kind of. Yeah, it actually means inside out, I think. So we have this. We use the same word for it in Icelandic, whether it's shoulder in or haunches in or any of those stuff. Anything that's like inside out in that sense, we have a word for. So that's kind of where my confusion came with that word. But obviously, as Kathy pointed out, it should be haunches in or haunches out, or traver and renver. It is not something we use so much in Iceland, but I also noticed that I'm looking into this, that a lot of people talk about haunches in and then renver. So anyway, haunches in versus haunches out, or traver versus renver would be the words to officially use. I kind of got confused with all those words and all those languages there, so sorry about that. I'm gonna just highlight some points that I talked about haunches in, haunches in and then haunches out. I just decided to add this haunches out in hand first. It's something that I recently started doing, quite honestly, a lot. I've learned it, but I never really used it much. I started doing with Socrates, my black horse I had in this video, primarily in the beginning, just to have different things to do with him in the ground. So I was doing a lot of, shoulder in and collection, whatever, but I wanted to kind of add this control into it. So I started playing around with it a little bit. And I liked it. Also been recently teaching some horses it like this, with on the ground, do the haunches out on the ground. I've ridden it quite a bit, done it a lot in the saddle. I've done a lot of haunches out. And the reason I started doing haunches out, or we started studying that here in Iceland, is that there's an interesting story behind that. When we started using haunches in Iceland, like many things in Iceland, people, when they learn them or adapt them, they really do them. which is fine. And then we learn, sometimes we can overdo things, and in some cases, we're probably teaching horses haunches in that maybe we're not quite ready for it. Maybe we did too much of it. But anyway, it caused sometimes the hind end to kind of be out of control. So we started collecting or doing anything, and the horse would always like answer with the hind end coming in. And I remember a certain amount of trainers and certain trainers, friends of mine, they just decided that haunches in was a bad exercise. We lose control of the hind end and never doing it again. I think many of them came back, obviously, realizing that probably if it's bad like this, we are doing it wrong, right? So I think we're obviously going through a learning phase, how to do it best and how to use it best. But in this process, people started studying or learning that maybe doing haunches out was even a better place to start, or at least a place to have or exercise to have also, because there you're kind of more affecting the shoulder. And you never really have a problem of, the horse is less likely to use that against you. When the hind end kind of gets loose, they can start to use it against you, and it's a little bit harder to deal with. If the horse throws his hind end one way or the other every time you ask him to, for example, collect or do something, it can be a little bit kind of annoying and hard to deal with. I don't really have that problem much anymore. I think I like to believe, because I'm getting a little bit better at these exercises and better at introducing them and teaching them, so the horse understands them better, doesn't just do them somehow. There's more understanding to the aids and more accuracy probably. But since this video was or this topic was titled more about haunches in, I have a video about haunches in, and there I go more into kind of how I started. I wanted to add this haunches out and then also on the ground. And like I said, I think it can be a good place to start on the ground, particularly because you have the reins running over the neck. And it's so easy to get that, over the neck, kind of down by the withers. It's kind of easy to get that shoulder, that wither control through your reins. And then you have the stick on the inside and you are there. So it's a relatively good position to be in to teach haunches out. It's hard position to be in to teach haunches in. Then you have to reach over with the stick or get the horse to come towards you, and that is harder. So okay, maybe I can figure out, like when we're teaching it, it's so much easier to teach haunches out in hand, but it's easier to teach haunches in the saddle. That's kind of how I feel about it anyway. But that everybody has their own technique, and a lot of other trainers will say something else, but this is kind of how I have experienced it. Haunches in is another difficulty level, higher difficulty level of exercises, where the horse is bending around one and yielding from another leg, and looking where he is yielding to. This is quite a big step sometimes from the exercises we did so far. Generally speaking, the difficulty level at the beginning would be turn of the forehand, leg yield, and then maybe shoulder in, and then maybe some different versions of that. But like according to the book, I think this would probably be the order of exercises, the difficulty level of those. And if you think about those exercises, turn on the forehand, you have the horse flexed a little bit to the left, moving to the right, so flexed around the same leg it's yielding from. You have leg yield, the horse flexed a little bit to the left, yielding from the left leg, again, bent or flexed and yielding from the same leg. And then you have shoulders in, where the horse is bending around the left and the left shoulder in and yielding from the left. Not so to say that the hind leg, not to say that the outside leg, your outside leg doesn't come in and it can be necessary for all those exercises, but it's more for like riding forward, riding out of the exercise, or straightening the horse up, things like that. But the basic, the horse is bending around, flexing around the same leg it's yielding from. Then you have like another category of most of exercises, which would then be haunches in or out, turn on the haunches, some kind of pirouette that's sometimes talked about, and then half pass, for example, where the horse is now looking to the left, bend around your left leg then, but then yielding from your right leg and doing exercises to the left. And then obviously the opposite on the other side. So we have this bend here in this way. We need that leg to support that bend. The horse needs to look this way, but it's also yielding that way. And that becomes quite a bit more complicated system of cues to understand. So the first steps can be a struggle sometimes, I feel, but it is different how well, obviously, it depends a lot on how well we prepared it, of course. Other exercises than haunches in, or let's put it this way, this first category of exercises where the horse is yielding and bending around the same leg or from the same leg, they do not offer what, for example, haunches in offers, which is that diagonally affecting the horse, where you are flexing or bending the horse to the left while reaching the right hind leg to come underneath and be more active or carrying more. And if you think about how horses are, most of them, and if you think about how most horses' crookedness is, if you say so, we made some videos on that, but that would be a horse, for example, we say, for lack of better terms, left banana, or say hollow left horse, a horse that really likes to bend a lot to the left. He likes to move the shoulders out to the right, and he is less willing to bend to the right. He wants to bend to the left, is eager to bend to the left, not so eager to bend to the right. For most of the time, for those horses, they also have then the left hind leg a little bit to the inside. Where is this? They then want to travel with the left hind leg a little bit inside of the carrying line or center of gravity. So they like to carry more with the right hind leg, while they want to move the shoulder out to the right and be kind of hollow on the left. So what we need to do with that horse is we need to get control over the right shoulder while we encourage the left hind leg. And turn of the forehand, leg yield, or shoulder in are not going to do that, but haunches in is. So then you can flex the horse to the right, get that control, or bend the horse to the right, get that right shoulder under control, while you drive the horse, which is left hind leg underneath to carry into the center of gravity. So here you've got that right shoulder under control that had a tendency to bob out, and you've got that left hind leg underneath in action that had a tendency to go out. So you can say that when you really start to address your horse's crookedness at the higher level, you need this exercise. It's quite easy to justify that comment, I think. But of course, if you have a horse, and this is the challenge and beauty in training horses, we might have a horse that we know how he is crooked, how he is uneven, but he's not educated. For example, we start young horses and they're all uneven. We know how our young horses are pretty soon. This one is out through the right shoulder, protecting his hind leg, and then the other way around. We can figure that out to some extent relatively soon, but it's limited how much we can do about it, because I have to build up the system. I have to build all those tools over years before I actually have the control I need. In this case, for example, haunches in, to really address that crookedness. It doesn't mean we can't do a lot of other things. It doesn't mean we can't do a lot of suppling and balancing and strengthening. We can do a lot of other things. But as we get more trained, as we get more collected, as we get more together with our horse, the crookedness kind of maybe comes out a little bit more because we are challenging the horse more. And then at some point, you need this exercise, I think, to get through with that. So But again, we have to build up to it. Okay. Again, please ask questions if it's anything. I see something is there. I'll get at that later. Then we had the lesson with Kirsty, and we pulled out this horse that hasn't been here for a very long time. But he is trained and he knows stuff and quite well trained, I think, for the most part. And we just decided to, he doesn't know it. Let's just take him out and do what we can do. Hey, Bridget. And just see how it is. I mean, we had never done it before, and he had clearly never done it before. But I wanted to do that because, first of all, that's my belief in this online educational system I have, is to show you the real thing and show you how it is. And this is just one example of a daily project we could have here. Oh, this horse needs to learn haunches in or haunches out. Let's get on it, and we just start, and then we kind of learn along the way and see what he knows and doesn't know and whatever. We of course have to make sure he knows enough to even start in the first place. But as I showed in the beginning, he did know shoulder in, he did yield and things like that. And this is just sometimes how it is. One of the challenges when it comes to this, and that's where a riding instructor can come in handy, is to recognize the smallest try. So let's say, again, here in the beginning, the hardest thing for him was to understand and realize and accept the fact and understand the fact that he was supposed to be bent in this way while he would yield in that way with his hind end. He always wanted to, as soon as he felt that inside leg that was creating the bend, he just ran from that leg out because that's what he knew. He's also not a particularly sensitive horse. He's a very calm horse and calm-minded. So he was just like trying to do what he knew how to do, what to do. So one of the keys there for Kirsty and for me to figure out with Kirsty there was that to be easy on the inside leg, to be easy on the bending leg and not use it much at all, but to rather use the reins to bring the shoulder in or out, depending on if you're doing haunches in or haunches out. And count on that control over the shoulders through the rein to begin with, almost separate, controlling the hind end with your legs and the reins, shoulders between your hands. And then I want to refer you to the lateral work videos that I did a long time ago. I had a series on lateral work, I think it's called. And I think it's in one of the later videos. I think I did 4 or 5. And in video 4 or 5, I think I go quite well into how I think about that on a circle. In that case, I think to control the shoulders between my hands a little bit, to control the hind legs between my legs a little bit, where I can block the shoulder and open the shoulder. And what I started thinking about when I was watching Kirsty's lesson here right before this started is maybe one of the things that made this a little bit difficult in the beginning with this horse. Yes, Kirsty maybe used the inside leg a little bit too much in the beginning, and I wasn't quite picking up on that in the beginning, but then we did, and then it went much better once she started using the reins more to control the shoulders and just her legs to control the hind end. But maybe one of the reasons also is that he might not have been trained much to understand the rein control or the shoulder control through the rein. I think that's a very helpful tool, not just for haunches in, but exercises in general and riding in general, that you can affect the horse's front legs and shoulders movement here between your hands. Rein laying on the neck, this one leading a little bit, this rein laying on the neck, this one leading a little bit. And you can kind of control this a little bit. We call it block the shoulder, open the shoulder. And maybe it would have been good, thinking back, to maybe take more time to teach him that before we even got into this exercise. All right. Yeah, and what I was pointing out to you, also talking about sometimes the hard part is to recognize the smallest try. Sometimes the hardest part is to recognize the smallest try, because you have the horse set up, and then he just a little bit takes that one step in this direction while he kept the correct bend to recognize that and then reward the horse right away out of it. This can sometimes be the hardest part. And the better you're at finding this small try, there is something in the direction, but super little, because a horse knows exactly what he's trying to do. He just doesn't understand. If we or the better and quicker we reward for that tiny little try, the better it goes for us. The more often we miss that try and we kind of need the horse to do a really proper step of hunches in before we can reward for it, that's not good. Then we miss his little tries, and we make it very difficult, because he doesn't learn hunches in by doing a proper hunches in. He learns it by doing some wannabe hunches in, when he yields to the right a tiny bit when kept bent to the right or something like that. I mean, like, yes, this is the idea. You got the idea. And he's like, oh, okay, I can do that. And then you build on that. And this is so important, but at the same time so difficult to do. And this is where somebody on the ground can help, or video or something like that. All right. I find it different with horses if it's easier to start with hunches in or hunches out. When I start to write the exercise or teach them in the saddle, sometimes it's easier somehow to influence the shoulders out and try to maintain the hind end on the wall. Sometimes it is easier to, and I think I can say that most of the time, I probably have to admit, I usually probably most of the time just teach hunches in out of the corner, like I did in the first hunches in video. I write a sharp corner, move my hands out as I come out of the corner, slide my outside leg back as I come out of the corner, and try just to get one step of the horse yielding the hind end in while he keeps the shoulders on the wall, looking down the long side. And I also think maybe it's easier often for riders to visualize that exercise, kind of like to have the horse looking down the long side, along the long side, and the hind end coming in. The hunches out becomes a little bit, you don't have as much the help of the wall to line it up for you, even though you do, but it's not quite the same. That can also be different for the riders. Maybe it's just easier for me to visualize it hunches in, and maybe I've just done more of it, and maybe that's the simple reason why I do it that way. But I do like to do hunches out also, and I am starting to experiment with it more and more on the ground as a first step of it, like I was showing you there and we did with Kirsty. All right. Yeah, I think I have this here covered. Kathy had a comment here. Contra does mean counter. Okay, good to know. But in English equine language, we use counter bend, for example, yes. Travers and renvers are friends, yes, and nothing especially fancy. Okay, sounds more fancy, I guess. In addition to being an exercise in flexibility and obedience to the aids, for me, the most important use of hunches in, the most important use of hunches in is to progress from half pass to flying chains. Yes, this is probably always, I'm not doubting this is very true, Kathy. But I have not, I think I've never taught a horse a flying lead change, not yet. I've always been wanting to do that. Our goals are quite often different here in Iceland, at least with those gaited horses, but I've seen it done and I would like to do it. So progress from half pass, yes, to a flying change, yeah. Okay, cool. Maybe we will work on that next time you come, Kathy. We'll do some flying lead changes. I would love to work on that. I had this horse that me and Kathy owned together, Ástapungur, that I have always wanted to teach flying lead change because he has a very strong canter. Many Icelandic horses don't have that as strong canter as obviously the three-gaited horses, so it can be trickier, I think, to teach them flying lead changes. But it's also just, I think, that's part of it, but it's also our industry in the sport just doesn't call for it. It's never expected anywhere. Even at the highest levels, we have other difficult things we do. Now there is a competition, though, this guiding a list that we talked about here one time, that does, at least, rewarders for things like that. So if you could show a flying lead change there, that could be a good one, could be rewarded for that. So maybe we'll start to see it more. I think between it not being expected in our industry and also the horses being gated, it's probably a little bit harder to teach them when they have less strong canters. But I think we have more and more horses with strong canters, so I think we will start to see it soon. One fun thing I can tell you on the side note that I've started studying a little bit with the help of Eyjólfur Ísólfsson, one of my favorite teachers. I went on a clinic with him a few weeks ago with my 12th horse Socrates, and we are starting to work towards with him turn on the haunches on Tult, and that I have not seen done before. I think some people have done it, but he's extremely flexible Tult horse, and we are convinced, and Eyjólfur is convinced, that he can learn to do turn on the haunches on Tult. So I have a good goal there to work towards for the next years. Brigitte had a question here. What did you mean that the horse may get a bit wobbly in the hind end when you do too much haunches in? Yeah. What do I mean when I say they could get wobbly in the hind end? What I mean is that they start to use it a little bit against you. You know how sometimes horses, they learn something and then you ask for something else and they give you something different, which they find more convenient. So for example, how they would use it against you, Brigitte, would be like we teach a horse haunches in, and when they learn haunches in, the exercise can become quite easy for them in some way, or at least, shouldn't say that. The exercise is always difficult to ride well, but it can become easy for them to put the hind end in, and particularly on one side, on that soft side, that sometimes called hollow side. So remember we talked about this left hollow horse who was hollow on the left side, doesn't want to bend too much to the right. He keeps the hind end a little bit to the left, so he likes to carry with the right hind leg. That's the horse that needs the haunches in the other way to get the left hind leg under and get the right shoulder under control. But that horse might start to, or we've had the experiences where that horse tends to use the haunches in to the left, where he can keep using his strong right hind leg and keep the bend to the left. That's like a dream exercise for that left hollow horse. A left haunches in is almost an exercise he prefers to go in on a daily basis. He likes to just keep his shoulders a little bit to the right, look to the left, and keep that right hind leg coming underneath the center of gravity. So we teach him that to go the opposite way and balance that out. And then let's say you're just riding the horse and you're riding him collected tilt or collected walk, and you want this horse to collect on his hind end, then he offers you haunches into the left, because that's great, I can do this. You're like, no, I need both legs under. So then you might maybe use the other haunches in to balance him out or whatever. So then you kind of have the horse's hind end a little bit like wobbly or kind of out of control, and you kind of try to control it, but he is always offering you his favorite exercise, which is now haunches in, but only in one direction. The other one he's not offering you. He just offers you the one that he doesn't need to practice. So that would be an example of how that could be wobbly hind end, but usually just a matter of then keep training and you get it under control. But if you take that horse that has this loose hind end to the left, and instead of training the hind end to come to the left, you actually start to focus more on the shoulders and not so much the hind end, but your result is the same, the position is the same, but you're controlling more the shoulders versus the hind end, then maybe he's less busy about moving his hind end. He's more concerned about what you're asking him to do with the front end, and the hind end kind of follows a little bit more. So that's why we started affecting more the shoulders into haunches in instead of actually affecting the haunches. I think you mean wiggly and not wobbly. Yeah, well, whatever word it is, I guess. Wobbly implies something wrong with the horse's balance. You mean intentionally wiggly? Yes. So wiggly is probably a better word. Kathy, my language specialist there, it's good to have you. So yeah, so it basically means the horse starts to use an exercise he prefers to kind of answer you with that instead of what he finds a little more difficult, which might just be collecting straight, for example. I've sometimes had horses who are quite a bit crooked, and I decide to teach them haunches in, but I just teach it to them in the beginning on the side that they need it on. I don't really teach it on the side that they don't need it on, because that's the side they're offering it to me on. I teach them just on the side where I will teach them both sides eventually, but sometimes for a while I just start with the one that I really need and use that for a few weeks or months before I introduce the one that they will probably be eager to do as soon as they understand it. Because if you think about like what can I say, a crooked horse, he is like a little bit, he's bent here, but the hind end is also a little bit there. This is usually how it goes. So it's almost like they have a very easy time offering you this haunches in, but then the other one, they don't want to offer you. And if you're always trying to get like some balance to horses physical and mental balance, and no horse is perfectly balanced. So we're always training what they don't offer us, if you can put it like that. We had a question here from somebody called Q. Does the horse need to be more mature to handle haunches in? That is older than 4 years. Yes, I can definitely say that, but I think we got this here. So, yes, this is a good question. I don't teach this exercise very, very early on. It's a quite advanced exercise. I heard a trainer once describe it quite well. And I think that this makes a lot of sense to me, even though the actual years might not be a holy number in that sense. This trainer said something like, I introduced the exercise at 5-year-old, I teach it at 6-year-old, and I actually start to use it at 7-year-old. Something like that could makes sense to me. Obviously, these years don't mean anything because it depends on how quickly horse is trained and when he started. But this would be implied, or this would work or make sense if you start the horse at 4-year-old. I would never teach a 4-year-old haunches in. At 5-year-old, I think it's okay to, if the horse keeps being trained, it's probably okay. If the training process is normal, to start to introduce it to him a little bit, some control there. And then at 5-year-old, you might just like really start to train it. Now, 6-year-old, you might start to like finish it. And then like at 7-year-old, you're actually able to really, really use it. It's something of this nature, meaning that I don't think, there's so many other things the horse has to learn first. Go forward and bend and flex and moving the hind end, and then leg yield and shoulder in and balance and top line control. And so all kinds of things we have to have in place before we start working with haunches in. So I think you are looking at, 6-year-old horse plus or minus before you actually start to do a lot with it. And the thing with all exercises is that there's always kind of like, I like to talk about it like this training period or training time or teaching period or teaching time, where we're teaching the horse the exercise. While we are teaching the horse exercise, that is, he's learning the exercise, he's not become very, very good at it. He kind of knows it a little bit step by step. But it isn't until he's quite good at the exercise that it becomes actually helpful or beneficial in training. So while you're teaching the horse the exercise, he needs to understand the cues quite well, needs to become quite confident in it, and you too. And that can be quite some time, in some cases weeks, some cases many months, depending on how much focus you put on it, until the exercise is actually starting to help you physically for the horse. However, while you're teaching the horse anything, it's very often very helpful for the connection between the horse and rider, and the horse gets more responsive and respectful and obedient and all those things. It helps with many, many things. But you hear like, haunches in, strengthens the outside hind leg, whatever. Well, it's not going to strengthen the outside hind leg while you're just in the teaching mode. You know what I mean? You really need to be riding it enough and using it enough and be quite good at it before you start to see any benefits like that. So you also have to accept that fact. It's like, it's like a half-made tool. You have to make the tool before you can actually start to use it to really improve something. So I think that is quite important to remember. We had a question here in the lesson. Let me see. Here we go. Brigitte said this was instructive in terms of what will happen when we try this exercise with our own horses. Yes, and that's why this kind of decided to go for it like this. It's just this was a really real experience, but you did see quite a good result there in the end. And for being one lesson, I think it was not bad progress, but you could see it was a little bit struggle in the beginning. And as I pointed out, it might be that it made a big difference when we realized that Kirsty couldn't use her inside like much, needed to count on her reins to control the shoulders. And it's quite possible that he was not so good at that before, maybe as he should be before we start doing this. I'm glad you took this lovely calm gelding to show how to teach the horse haunches in from the beginning. Provided the horse knows lateral work and cues, how would you approach teaching a horse that gets nervous and confused during this exercise? Would that be a symptom of the horse not being ready to be taught this? It's a good question. So if the horse would be acting in a more nervous way than this gelding that we had there is quite calm and easygoing guy. Some horses would not be. I don't think it necessarily means he's not ready to learn it, but we have to approach it differently. We would have to approach it maybe less at a time, because sensitive horses sometimes kind of the energy gets loaded up and they get kind of tense and they can kind of explode more at some point. Be easy with the cues, maybe prepare it as well as you can on the ground. And really, really important with those horses to find those little small tries and reward for them. Because they get very frustrated when they don't understand. And they get even more frustrated when they don't get rewarded for a try. But always has to be a try in the right direction. I think for an experienced trainer, a sensitive horse makes it easier. But a quicker process, because he's always trying to respond to something, and now it's just up to us to figure out when he tries the right thing, and when he does, we reward for it, and then things go fast. But for the less experienced rider, it might be more challenging because that rider might not see the try right away, and then you could create some more tension by not rewarding for something that you should have rewarded for. So it's challenging, and that's always just in general, more experienced riders do usually well with very sensitive horses. And there's a reason that less experienced riders don't buy the most expensive horse in the beginning. So everybody has to find their balance here, I think. But if you have the horse prepared, if he understands lateral work and he understands some shoulder control with the reins, and he does shoulder in and things like that, and he's quite good to the leg, and he's not 4 years old, then I think it does not have to mean, Brigitte, that he's not ready, but I think it means you have to take very small steps, and you have to really, really try to set her up so you find a way to get a positive try in the right direction, and then reward for that and build on that. So I hope that helped. All right. Any more questions? If not, I think my comments are finished. Just making sure here. I will make a video about the new topic here soon. I think it's in a couple of weeks or so. We get a new poll next week. This next topic is going to be how to get your horse on the bit. This will be fun. How to get the horse on the bit, or get your horse on the bit. This will be a cool topic. I'm looking forward to making that video and talking to you about that. Again, let's review one more time, guys, that you have quite a few chances to ask questions, even when if you cannot be here or not be live. Don't be shy to put question in comments below my video. Don't be shy to put question in comment below the lesson video. And I will answer those questions here. And if you can't see this live, you can just watch it later. And then obviously you can ask questions right here, right now. Very good, guys. Thanks for now. I will see you soon. Take care. Bye.